do. That's all. That's what I was trying to highlight. And the packet doesn't refer folks to the February 8th presentation. So
He'll do that in his presentation. So thank you for that.
All right. Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. So we are ready to go for tonight's meeting.
all righty, it looks like we have all commissioners on video. Welcome everyone to the Tuesday evening, February 22nd, 2022 meeting. Clerk Moss, announcements and roll call, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Washington County Board of Commissioners, also meeting as the Board of Directors for Clean Water Services and all other county service districts, is now meeting this regular session, February 22nd, 2022. Commissioner Rogers.
Here.
Commissioner Fye.
Here.
Commissioner Treese.
Here.
Vice Chair Willie.
Here.
Chair Harrington.
Here. Thank you. The first item on our agenda is public communication. Clerk Moss, are there any folks who wish to talk with us this evening?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have Dale Feek. Dale, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me, Kevin?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead for up to 2 minutes.
Thank you. I just set my timer. Catherine Harrington, Chair of the County Commission, and also Commissioners Roy Rogers, Jerry Willie, Pam Treese, and Nafisa Fye. I'm Dale Feek, Chair of Washington County Citizen Action Network. During my 2-minute oral comment February the 15th before you said, Chair Harrington, the staff of the county and Clean Water Services would get back to me about the questions I asked about landfills and perfluorinated substances, chemicals. I'm pleased to report that I got reports from Mark Jockers and also from Thomas Eggleston, and they addressed the questions that I had. So I much appreciate the staff and your encouragement of them doing that. I sent you an email, and in that email, there's an attachment, and it lists how I reacted to their statements to me. So please take a look at the email that I sent to you. The summary of that, though, is I want to thank the county staff and you, Chair Harrington, for your timely reply to my questions. And thank you, Chair Harrington, for your outstanding leadership in the area of sustainability and environmental concerns. And thank you, Commissioners, for adopting policies to support her and the county's leadership. And then I've dealt with the sustainability issue. As you know, I was chair of the Forest Grove City Sustainability Commission for a number of years, so it's a thing of my heart. But Robin Strawn and also Tom, his last name skips me. Anyway, take a look at what they have to say. I'm really impressed with their leadership too. And also take a look at the comments that said about Mark Jockers and the Clean Water Services reply. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Feek.
Would any other members of the public wish to provide public comment to the board at this time for up to 2 minutes tonight? Not seeing any additional hands, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Moss. Next, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda consists of 11 items. 1 item from Clean Water Services, 8 items from Land Use and Transportation, 2 items from Support Services, and that's all 11 items. Is that a motion from you, Commissioner Rogers, to adopt the consent agenda? A second from Commissioner Treese. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying yes. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Next, we'll move on to presentations. This is a presentation on a really great program here in Washington County to improve our connectivity. It's called the Tualatin Valley Highway Hope Grant Project. So with us tonight, we'll have, I assume, our director, Stephen Roberts, to kick us off with an assemblage of his team members. Thank you for joining us all.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm actually just going to ask Chris Defabach, our Senior Policy Analyst for Land Use and Transportation, to give us a little quick introduction to the presentation and then introduce our guest speakers from Metro and TriMet. So go ahead, Chris.
Okay, thank you, Stephen, and hello, Chair and Commissioners. So we're very pleased tonight to have with us the project managers of the Tualatin Valley Highway Helping Opportunity for Everyone grant from Metro, Aaron Keehee, and from TriMet, Jamie Snook, who are the co-project leads for this new effort study for the Tualatin Valley Highway. So I think the importance of Tualatin Valley Highway is well known to you and to the community. We have been working to see and develop improvements and have made some progress. There's still a lot to be done, but this work goes back decades with work on the TV Highway Corridor Study, one of the first. I think some of you were, I know, Chair, you worked on that one, to identify a list of projects of traffic and transit improvements that are needed and help set the stage for coordinating on investments in that corridor. We had the Aloha Reedville study that really looked at identifying additional, really deepened our understanding with the community engagement and the visions for the Aloha Town Center area along the corridor. We've had the Moving Forward TV Highway study, which refined the transits and other proposals that were recommended out of the Aloha Reedville study. And then more recently, we had funding from Metro that assisted us in laying out a concept for both transit and safety improvements. And all of this work has involved all of our partners, Beaverton, Forest Grove, Hillsborough, Cornelius, along this area, along with the Oregon Department of Transportation, and of course with Metro and with TriMet. So this is a continuation of this long process really to really come together to identify the improvements that are needed and how we design them. And so we're very pleased now to turn this over to Jamie and Aaron to go over the next steps in this process, develop the transit and safety improvements in this area. And they will also be telling you about the expansion of the an equitable development strategy similar to what we worked on for the Southwest Corridor as part of this process. So I'm going to turn it over to them, and we are excited to have their commitment to move forward with the improvements on this highway.
Thank you so much, Chris. Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Key, and I am the project manager of the Hope Grant TV Highway project for Metro. And I'm here today with Jamie Snook, Director of Capital Projects at TriMet. We're going to do this presentation together to give you an idea of the work we have ahead and how we would like you to be involved with it. I'll turn it over to Jamie to start.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here today. We're really excited. Can you advance to the next slide, please? So we are here to talk about the HOPE grant that's helping obtain prosperity for everyone. This is an FTA grant that we were lucky enough to receive, and it's really going to help us identify the transit improvements we'd like to make along the TV highway. The HOPE grant is really aimed to address transportation challenges faced by areas of persistent poverty. And TV highway was a really good fit for this particular grant and to help us advance transit improvements along the corridor. Next slide, please. So through the TV highway grant, we are going to be working alongside Metro, working on the public transit planning, so identifying the transit investments along the corridor, but then also developing an equitable development strategy that Aaron's going to talk about in a little bit more detail coming up soon. Next slide. Really, I think Chris really hit it on the head, saying that we're not starting from scratch. There's been decades of work along TV highway, and we really want to build off of the work that the planners and engineers and the community members have done throughout the past 10 plus years. So we're building off of the work that was done most recently along the planning project and most recently through the Get Moving 2020, and developing those concepts in more detail along TV highway so that we can get to something that we can build quickly to help move people along TV highway. As part of the transit planning work, we're also going to be focusing our attention on electric vehicles. And we think that's an important part of how we move people throughout the region as we move forward. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to hand it over to Erin. So thank you.
So the next body of work that we committed to do as part of this HOPE grant project is to create an equitable development strategy for the corridor. This is a way that Metro has been approaching planning on corridors with our partners on Division and on Southwest Corridor. Chris referred to that. Southwest Corridor is providing a really great template for what we'd like to do here on TV Highway. It started with the creation of a coalition of advocates, community members, funders, philanthropic organizations, housing and service providers, workforce development. A wide variety of professionals came together to talk about, and I think we all hope that that transit investment can also be part of a much bigger vision for needs on TV Highway that has been envisioned in all of these plans over these years. And an equitable development strategy will help make sure that the community's needs for economic and housing development are reflected in those plans for transportation improvements. So we're working with community-based organizations to put together the process of how that plan should come together. The ultimate product of this area of work is a strategy. We want to create an equitable development strategy for TV Highway that has essentially an action plan of activities that the community believes are needed, different kind of investments and activities needed to support the existing residents and existing business owners as transportation investment goes into the corridor to make sure they continue to thrive in the area and aren't displaced. We think this is really, really key to transportation anywhere in the region, and we're excited to find out how it will be unique and how that strategy will come together in TV Highway. Next slide. So you know very well that this corridor is a very diverse corridor. This information is from the Get Moving 2020 measure. So we're working now to update this information and use new census data. But at that time, 48% of the corridor was residents who identify as people of color. I suspect that that number has increased, if anything. And you can see a little bit about that, about how it's divided. Next slide. As we applied for this HOPE grant, you can see 40% of the population is below the 200% poverty line. So we were able to make the case about why investment in this area and planning for both equitable development and transit improvements are very, very important. I thought it was interesting to share that there are over 30,000 jobs in the area, but 54% of them pay less than $40,000 a year. It's also important to realize how important the line 57 is. And it's, as TriMet looks at its different lines, it provides very important access to jobs, affordable housing, and social services in areas where people need those connections the most, low income, communities of color. And we find that this helps define why this corridor is important and why we're focusing on it today. Next slide. I know you also are probably all very aware that the geometry of TV Highway makes it a very dangerous corridor. There are conflicts between automobiles, people getting to transit, freight, bicycle users. It's a roadway that has had a lot of plans for a reason because it has a lot of needs. Next slide, please. Chris already really did this slide for me, so thank you, Chris. Because this doesn't encompass it all, but this also adds, it's a highlight of a lot of the plans that have looked at TV Highway, including some specific ones in Beaverton, that Chris didn't mention. So I guess I'm building on what she said with these. But the point is, there's a long, long history of planning. We're very, very excited about building on. It's only going to be one piece. Transit is only one piece of the needs on TV Highway and of the topics addressed in many of these plans. But it's one that we can move towards implementation, and we think that could be very, very meaningful. So we're excited about this work. Next slide. A little bit about the partnership. I said that we were here to talk about your involvement. So, it's very interesting. I don't see Metro, but Metro and TriMet would be in those blue containers in the middle. So that's kind of weird that we fell off this slide. But anyway, Metro's involved because I work at Metro. So Metro and TriMet are leading this. Like, we're having the staff that are organizing the meetings and sending out the emails, but really this is a very tight partnership of important players. ODOT, of course, it manages most of the roadway, is the roadway owner. Washington County, Beaverton, and each of all the other cities, Forest Grove, Cornelius, and Hillsborough, are all our partners. We've begun meeting with your staff and all of theirs monthly. We started this summer, beginning to talk about this work and how we would work together to pursue it. There are also important conversations that have to happen with the railroad. You know that many miles of TV highway are bordered by the railroad on one side, providing its own kind of unique challenges. And there will be a partner that we need to work with, as well as Tualatin Valley Parks and Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation, excuse me, and Clean Water Services. We're going to bring in a design consultant to work with staff from these organizations to produce concepts and ideas to be considered by leadership. So in the next slide, go ahead and advance. I'll talk a little bit about the structure. So we're going to have several groups. I've mentioned one of them, the technical working group. That's the staff I mentioned that's been meeting since the summer. We've also created a policy advisory group. This is management level staff who are there to help with roadblocks that might come out of disagreements or different ideas from all the project partners, and to really queue up what those options and choices are for the steering committee, that the third group there on the bottom. There will be a TV Highway Steering Committee. It is going to be chaired by two Metro councilors, Councilor Rosenthal and Councilor Gonzalez. They have sent an invitation to your board chair, inviting you to select someone to serve on that steering committee to represent Washington County. And it will have representation from all of the groups you saw on the previous, government groups you saw on the previous slide. The steering committee's job is to select a locally preferred alternative for this transit. So essentially to come up with a recommended transit concept for high capacity transit on TV highway. We also will have an equitable development coalition. I spoke about this group roughly when I was speaking before about the creation of the equitable development strategy. That strategy is meant to be community led. So that coalition, I talked about it being a variety of types of community members and organizations that work in the community working together on that, the development of that strategy. So that's another group, that coalition. That coalition is invited to select up to 5 of its members to serve on the steering committee with the elected officials representing each of the different organizations. So that's another way of having community voices as part of the transit decision, as well as the development of the equitable development strategy. So on the next slide, I'll show you sort of how it's built. You can see the consultant working with the technical work group at the bottom there in orange, and that's where all the ideas are happening. We're working through a lot of those challenges with the railroad and how to get what we need to fit. And how to work within the funding environment where we want to leverage federal funding from the Federal Transit Administration to support implementation of the project. The policy advisory group, remember I said them helping remove roadblocks and forming up good questions for the steering committee and the community. So you can see them there in blue. We need feedback from the community about different options in order to make this transit project successful and meet the needs of community, particularly those who are riding the transit or who could ride the transit in the future. And the steering committee then representing all of the different project partners to help make those final decisions about what transit concept is the best, using that information from the technical side, from staff and from community, bringing that information to them. The steering committee makes a decision about the transit concept, and then ultimately that transit concept needs to be made part of the regional transportation plan, the RTP. The RTP is going to be going through an update about the same time that we're doing this work. So it could be that this works itself into the update of the RTP, or it might require a separate action. This is sort of typical of a separate action. The Metro Council would vote on that amendment to the RTP on incorporating this transit concept. And before that, JPACT and MPACT would have to act. The intent is that before that happens, the Washington County Board, we'd bring this concept that the steering committee had come up to get with to you, to the Washington County Board, as well as the city councils along the roadway, the TriMet Board, et cetera, to weigh in on this and to provide a recommendation before it goes through that decision-making process and becomes part of the RTP. So that's the place where the most formal place where we imagine this coming back to you, as well as having hopefully one of your members participating on that steering committee to make sure Washington County's voice is an important one in shaping this transit concept. The Equitable Development Coalition, I expect to be a much more horizontal and less hierarchical group. This is community-led, so community will be determining the process for the strategy. At the same time, we want the support of the cities and the county as Metro and TriMet. So we'll be bringing that equitable development strategy to you also. Ideally for your support, showing your interest in supporting the implementation of that development strategy as well. So you can expect to see both of those products coming back your way about mid-2023. Our goal is a transit concept by June of 2023. So not a slow process. We intend to keep moving forward and bring something to you really soon. Next slide. Oh, I think I really said this. This just gets into a little bit more detail about us coming back to you and what that looks like, kind of a circular process, starting with the steering committee's recommendation and then bringing it back to you to solidify that it's the concept that you support. Next slide. Just to be clear, the products of the HOPE grant that we promised FTA are an action plan, equitable development strategy, so a document. But really much more than that, I hope that it's a document that has a lot of support and buy-in from community and a group of advocates standing behind it, really advocating for it and willing to work kind of forward in the future to make sure it happens. And the other product is also a document at this point, a locally preferred transit alternative, which will be a map or a memo that includes travel time and reliability analysis. So we have a lot of information about how well it works, an electric bus feasibility study that Jamie mentioned already, and a design, of course, for the transit system. So it is our product in June of 2023 is more plans, but we're pretty excited about them being active and action-oriented plans. Next. And our timing. I mentioned 2023 is our goal, so you can see that we need refinement and public review in the later parts of 2022 going into 2023. Right now, we're really getting ourselves started making relationships in the community, finding community-based organizations that want to work with us on the creation of the equitable development strategy. We've been working with the CWAC, which is the Southwest Equity Coalition. It's a coalition of many organizations who have come together to implement the SWEDS, the Southwest Equitable Development Strategy. We went to them asking for their support and interest in doing this work, creating another strategy for TV Highway, because a lot of the organizations that are active in Washington County are also active in that coalition, including Central Cultural, for instance. Apano is becoming more active in Washington County, Unite Oregon, and those organizations really understand what we're trying to do with the strategy, so we hope that they could provide good leadership. And the SWAC has agreed to create kind of an arm of their organization to help us kick off this strategy and bring in more organizations and more community members from Washington County into the work. We're very excited to have this grant to support all of what I've talked about today. So the federal funds include $850,000 to support staff and in these community-based organizations to participate. That consultant contract, that kind of work becomes part of what's paid for by this grant. Metro has a local match, but in addition, Metro and TriMet are putting additional funds towards this to make sure it has the support from staff that it needs to face all of the challenges that it has ahead and to move us towards implementation as quickly as possible. Next slide. So just a reminder, the needs on TV highway are much greater than this transit project is going to solve, but we are pretty excited about this being a very, very important first step. I think the creation of an equitable development strategy is going to help guide future transportation investments as well. And if we can build the momentum of us, all of these organizations working together, I think the transit could be a catalyst, and that could be very exciting about bringing more and more funding to TV highway to realize the vision that was created during Get Moving 2020 with the participation of many of you. So thank you. Next slide. Thank you very much for your time today. We can stay and answer your questions for as much time as you have.
Commissioners, do you have any questions on this specific presentation today? Go ahead, Commissioner Willie.
Hi, yes, thank you. This is a great presentation. The question that I have is, it's not clear to me as where the scope of this project is. Does it go from Forest Grove to Beaverton, Canyon Road?
Yes,
how
thank you.
long is that project?
We should have made that very clear. It follows the line 57 from the Beaverton Transit Center in Beaverton to the end of the line in Forest Grove.
Okay.
Just past the campus of Pacific University.
So what is the Council Creek project? Does it play into this at all? Because, you know, that's kind of a separate multimodal path that we're envisioning over the next 10 years or so. Does that come into play anywhere?
We're going to be partners. We're already getting tied in with their work so that we can have conversations together about what opportunities and overlap there might be. But we have a lot of things in common. So we're going to be coordinated with that work. Jamie, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And just like Aaron said, that we are in partnership. So I also staff the Council Creek Trail technical group. And so there's a lot of coordination and understanding that all of the different modes along the corridor work as a system. And I think it's really important to understand all the different pieces as we're moving forward.
Yeah, that's that's an exciting project. Obviously, we're really early into that, and so I'm looking forward to what visions, I guess, could come out of that plan. And then the last question is your steering committee that you were hoping would have one commissioner on that. That kind of covers basically 2 districts of our commission. Well, 3 if you include the overall, that's true, but we're talking about, is Pam in there too? Ah, Pam, you reach over that far. I didn't know you did. So, okay, there's 3 of us. So how are we gonna divvy up this? Because
Well,
I
we're
think
going to
each
come
one
back
of
to
us
that
would
in a minute.
probably.
Hold that,
Okay.
hold that question a few more minutes.
All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Rogers, you have a question or comment?
More of a question and a comment. Comment would be that, yeah, we've worked on this project more years than I want to think about. They've gone by, but I really haven't heard TriMet in this process. We heard obviously from Metro, and they've worked that process through JPAC when I was there. But TriMet, you're the intricate one. That corridor doesn't work without you being in it in a big way. And so I'm not completely clear. Commissioner Willie's question on the corridor is more broad. I mean, he asked a good one, but if you only stop where you're saying you're stopping, that doesn't really form the great linkage that we need between Hillsborough, Forest Grove, and on out TV highway. So talk to me a little bit about that so I understand what your thoughts are.
So thank you. We're really excited about the opportunity to make some improvements along the line 57 to help improve speed, reliability, and safety and comfort for our riders. And so I think that this is a really big opportunity to do those things on TV highway for the riders along on the line 57 and for the community along TV highway as well. So, we're interested in electric bus, we're interested in higher capacity vehicles, better stations with weatherproofing and real-time information, and making sure that the ride where they need to go is safe and reliable and fast. So we're really excited about the opportunity to do this work on TV Highway.
Can I just follow up? I understand the electrification of your fleet, and I understand what you're attempting to do, but frankly, it's a question of the stations. I mean, it's a question of the bus pullouts. It's a question of, is the funding that's being proposed going to cover those costs? Are you covering them? Are you a partner in this, or you're going to? Last time I talked with your folks, you didn't have lots of money, but I'm pleased to hear what you're saying.
Mhm.
So you're saying that TriMet's going to have some real skin in this, and they're going to put some money into the transit stops, and they're going to not only just do their fleet, but they're going to do some infrastructure. Tell me what you're
That
thinking.
would be a next step, Commissioner Rogers. This is the plan that, if you think about the Division BRT project,
Yeah, I remember it.
there was a plan akin to this plan that preceded the BRT specific design level planning that you're getting to.
Yeah, and I remember all that. I just remember that the partners at the end weren't all there who were there in the beginning. And so I'm just trying to understand where your philosophy is. It sounds like, and I don't know that you, probably your board or general managers have to commit. So I agree with the chair. I mean, it's downstream, but I always like to know that when you rush into something, that partners are there with commitments as well. So I'll just leave it there.
So if I can, I think that you're right, and we need to work on that. And that's part of the work that's going to be happening over the next year or so. So we're hoping by June of 2023 that we have a locally preferred alternative, so that we as partners around the table all agree on what that transit investment looks like. The other part of that conversation is the finance plan. So we are hoping to go after the FTA Small Starts funding program to help fund this project. But that also means that it's going to be up to the partners around the table to also contribute to funding the project. And I think that that's part of that hard work that's going to be ahead of us over the next year, to at least identify conceptually what a conceptual finance plan looks like. But then over the next 2 years is really identifying what types of funding we have available across the partners to help build this project.
Commissioners, do you have any other questions yet?
I
Okay, oh, go ahead, Commissioner Fye.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Herndon. I think nice to meet you, Aaron and Jamie. Aaron, I like your name. As somebody who spells her name, I like your name.
Thank you.
Unique names are always they add to the diversity of us and embracing change. My question is, I think it's along with what Commissioner Roger was asking around infrastructure. So, and I live not far from TV Highway and drive at night on TV Highway, and some of those challenges to transportation is, especially transit, is around safety enhancements. Will this include some safety enhancements, infrastructure, like lighting within certain blocks? So I'm just wondering, I want to keep it, I don't want to hone in on a specific area or any of that, but just ask broadly safety enhancements that are going to be considered. If you could just help us understand what that might look like, or if it's not fleshed out, we can wait too.
Yeah, I can jump in. So it's not fleshed out yet, but we will be looking at what type of transit investments are needed along the corridor, but that also includes what is there to support transit. So for example, we will be looking at stations and bus stops and creating stations where it's you have a shelter and a nice place to stop and wait for the bus. And those will have to include safety improvements. So ADA accessibility, lighting, all of the things that come along with a safe and comfortable place to stop and wait for transit. And so those are the things that we'll be working out over the next couple of years. We won't, as we come to a locally preferred alternative in June of 2023, we probably won't have those details ironed out. But we will be considering all of the safety and comfort and transit investments together.
And I'll just add, if I can, that slide I showed near the end of a puzzle piece in a much bigger puzzle. I like that analogy to think about this. Transit is one piece of a puzzle of needs on TV highway. So I don't want to set expectations that are unrealistic. The transit needs to include safety improvements so that transit riders are safe getting to the station and from those stations, as Jamie was just saying. But the needs, the safety improvement needs on TV highway are even greater than that. And additional projects are going to be necessary. If you think about the Get Moving 2020 funding measure, there was imagined $800 million of improvements on TV highway, and 200 million of that was a bus rapid transit system. So that's a small percent. Not a small percentage, it's a percentage, a pretty good percentage, but still a percentage of a much bigger project. So I think it's helpful to think of the transit project that way. It won't be completely in isolation, but it won't meet all of the needs either. It needs to hopefully be a catalyst, as I said, of much more investments. And a lot of them are being talked about currently. And so I have a lot of hope in it bringing additional funds too.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate. I think if we can center, like, whatever improvement we're doing on certain area, will people have to put their life at risk to get to that? Like if we're illuminating this bus station right here, how do people get to that if they're like a block away, or if they have to? So I think I want us not to be a tunnel vision to just focus on that particular safety improvements, but just globally, how do people get to that shelter or the opposite shelter bus stations? So I just wanted, because I see a lot of my residents, people using the roads, and to be fair, they are actually putting their life at risk to get to where they're going. So if we could just center the safety of the individual, I think we will get further along for any of our improvements. But I agree with you, it's not going to accomplish every problem that TV highway faces and the residents that live there. But thank you for a great presentation and
thank you
for answering these questions.
And I would say, maybe Commissioner, I know we'll be back next week to talk about priorities for ODOT's flexible funding for the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And so investing in urban arterials like TV highway certainly is a great opportunity. And as I think Aaron and Jamie have done a great job pointing out, there are just so many needs and so much money that's needed. So we're going to really need to just sort of look at all the different opportunities that exist out there to help bring more funding to help address some of those needs. But you're absolutely right, access to transit is really essential.
Mm-hmm. Aaron, were you working on the Aloha Reedville study long ago? Yes, so you know
I sure
this
was.
area and the needs so very well.
I'm an Aloha high school graduate. It goes way back.
Yep. So I remember being in different community forums with you. So thank you. It's just so wonderful to have each of you, Jamie, Aaron, on this project. There is a lot of vested knowledge that you have and bring into this project. So commissioners, we have two opportunities. So we had a conversation a few weeks ago about the need to have a commissioner, at least one commissioner, serve on this committee. Metro would appreciate having one. And we know that there are lots of great partners as listed on the slide that will be part of this. We've also been asked as of today to decide by next Tuesday a board representative to the West Side Multimodal Improvement Study. So Clerk Moss, if you could bring up that document that's in the email that I forwarded, either just before or during this meeting. Commissioners, it's in your inbox.
Yes, just give me 1 second, Madam Chair.
You bet.
And
So you'll see that there is overlap. I remember just last summer that at least 3 members of this commission joined Congresswoman Suzanne Bonamici and our staff and Metro staff and ODOT staff at the Aloha Inn site to talk about the improvements for sidewalks, access, and economic development along TV Highway. Clerk Amos, if you could scroll down to the map a little bit further on that same page, the study map. Thank you very much. So commissioners, you have this document in your inbox. This is another committee that will be starting up this spring. This study is expected to complete in the fall of 2023, so a few months after the HOPE grant one that we were just referring to. So what I think would be useful is, given the amount of transportation work that is on our plate, and I know Stephen and Chris Defenbach have done a phenomenal job of trying to help us understand all these different studies and the amount of coverage needed. My recommendation to us for our group decision is that, given this West Side Multimodal Improvement Study, if Commissioner Treese is interested and open to it, have her represent us on this committee. And then, given the extent, Beaverton's done a lot of great work in planning both Canyon Road and the TV Highway area. Hillsborough has done quite a bit as well. And I think with the HOPE grant, we've got this area of unincorporated in there as well. Plus, we know that through the ridership data from Beaverton Transit Center to Hillsborough Transit Center, that's one, there are certain usage patterns along TV Highway for transit between those 2 points, and then another set of folks between the Hillsborough Transit Center and the end of the line in Forest Grove. So I would recommend Commissioner Treese for the West Side Multimodal Improvement Study and Commissioner Fye for the TV Highway HOPE grant steering committee. And unfortunately, we have to decide these things. So we don't have the luxury of having any more meetings this week. So this is it. So we can either close on it now, or we can come back to it during board communication.
I'm happy to serve on the West Side Multimodal Study. And I don't know if there's anybody else that would has a burning desire to do that. So I entertain others. I can see Jerry moving his pen around. I don't know that means that that's something he'd want to be doing, but my hand's up.
And I can do the TV Highway. I thought, can you all hear me?
Yes.
I didn't see any heads moving, so I was like, did I freeze?
Nope.
We're in a weird time with internet. I raised my hand for the TP Highway then, since it's mostly heavily concentrated on District 1 to start off.
I would have a comment. It doesn't affect me, obviously, in my particular district, so I'm not opposed to any of those, other than I just want to know how we loop in District 4, because this does have a significant impact on District 4. So I'm not sure how that piece works, and maybe if I understood that a little better. Again, I'm in the Southeast, but so this is for Commissioner Fye, Commissioner Treese, I understand, but I'm not sure how Commissioner Willie is impacted. Jerry, do you
Well,
have
if I could weigh in a little bit, Roy, at least as a minimum, I'd want to be the alternate to Commissioner Fye, so that I would have opportunity to sit in on those meetings as well. Because as you said, I was mayor during probably a couple of those studies. And so I've got some history as well, knowing what we went through with that and making sure, I guess, that this isn't deja vu and we're just redoing something that we've been doing a couple of times, and we get to the same conclusion, and then we realize it costs too much money and we park it. And so that's going to be my perspective, again, bringing in Cornelius and Forest Grove and Council Creek and certainly the Hillsborough part of TV Highway. So I'd like to be a part of that steering committee that Commissioner Faison.
Well, certainly, I think the alternate role is very helpful. I would assume that Commissioner Fye would be bringing you up to speed, as well as our staff as well, all along the way. And these are public meetings, so of course you can sit in on any of them without being an alternate or otherwise. So Commissioner Rogers, you had something more?
Well, it's probably the, other than, probably the least impacted, because the chair has all the area. I would make a recommendation that we appoint Commissioner Fye to this corridor study group, and that we appoint Commissioner Treese to the overall Southwest. I don't know why they call it Southwest. That's much broader than me. But anyway,
West side.
West side. Thank you. There we go. Thank you for that. And that Commissioner Willie be appointed as an alternate to Commissioner Fye.
Okay.
I second that motion. We're making a motion.
I did.
Okay, I second.
Is there any further board discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Okay. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. Thank you. And if between Brenda and LUT staff, we could get the appropriate letters of board assignment written up, that would be great.
We will take care of that. Yeah, and thank you all for making those decisions tonight. That's super helpful. Thank you.
And Ms. Kihei, Aaron, and Ms. Snook, Jamie, thank you very much for the work that you do each week and being out in our community and helping not only us as elected officials understand the whys and what fors and how this will go, but also for all the work that you do to help convene members of our community and help us get more investments in place to improve our communities so that everyone can prosper. And as Commissioner Fye points out, get to the places they need to go safely and comfortably.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
You bet. Stephen, was there anything more we needed to do on this tonight? Just
No,
to double check.
No, thank you. We really appreciate you jumping in and help making those decisions tonight. That's great. That helps us, and we'll get those letters taken care of. And again, appreciate your time tonight. I appreciated all the questions too. I mean, we have a lot of really interesting work ahead of us in both of these efforts over the next year plus. And so we look forward to keeping all of you up to date as we go through the process.
Terrific. Thanks to you too, Chris Steffenbach, for being here
Thank
with
you.
us and helping shepherd through all these different studies and how they all come together in that big puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Well, thanks again.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our next topic, which is a little more straightforward, I'll have to say. Item E1 is to appoint members to the Clean Water Advisory Committee, Clean Water Services Budget Committee. Mr. Jockers, would you like to take us through this, or do you want me to just bring it to life? Oops, I caught him off guard.
No.
Didn't mean to do that.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. As we talked to you 2 weeks ago, our Clean Water Services Advisory Commission has nominated 3 individuals to serve on our Budget Committee with the Board of Directors. And we're asking you to make those appointments today, those 3 people being Matt Wellner, Fatima Taha, and Terry Song.
And they're both active members of the Clean Water Advisory Committee. And there is a short set of biographies for each of them. So our motion is to appoint Matt Wellner to fill a term that expires September 30th of 2022. Terrence Song to fill the term that expires the following year, September 30th, 2023. And Fatima Taha to fill the term that expires the following September 30th of 2024. What are the wishes of the commission with regard to that motion? Thank you, Commissioner Treese. Do we have a second? Second from Vice Chair Willie. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Thank you very much. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. And I want to thank these three in advance. While our team does a great job of presenting the budget with an overview of history of why they have things teed up, we do still have a responsibility to get into the information and ask good questions on behalf of our public. So it is a little bit more than just showing up and sitting through a day's worth of meetings, but it is very informative, and seeing how all of the great technology is put into action for the benefit of water resource recovery, surface water management, all that great rain that comes from the sky, and taking care of our environment and the health of the river as well. So I know I'm looking forward to the budget committee meeting because it's fun, it's learning, it's cool. The things you get to do as an adult, it's fun. Okay, next item, E2. We have some vacancies on the set of over 30 boards and commissions here with Washington County. So I'd like to take the time to announce the vacancies and then make sure we have a motion to authorize the recruitment of applicants through April 5th of 2022 or until all vacancies are filled. For the Aging and Veteran Services Advisory Council, there are 9 available positions. For the Behavioral Health Council, 2 positions are available now and 3 will be coming available after March 31st. The Pacific Columbia Economic Development District, also known as COLPAC, that's a committee that Commissioner Willie serves on. There are 2 positions available now. That's unique. It has a very specific geography, so you'll want to look at that. The Farm Board of Review, there's 1 position available now and another one coming up after June 30th. But apply now, make it easier on yourself. Metzger Park Local Improvement District Advisory Board, 6 positions are available now. The Northwest Area Commission on Transportation, Northwest Act, another one of those important transportation committees that deals with a specific geography. 2 positions are available now. The Park and Recreation Advisory Board for Washington County, 1 position is available now and 3 will be coming up after June 30th. Rural Roads Operation and Maintenance Advisory Committee, that we also refer to as ROMAC, thanks to all those first letters. There are 3 positions available now. So if you live in any of our rural areas in Washington County, you should probably take interest in this one. This is the one that helps improve your gravel roadways, for example, and help us figure out how to program dollars in. Similarly, for the neighborhood streets in the urban unincorporated areas, so the neighborhoods that are outside of cities, there's the Urban Road Maintenance District Advisory Committee, also known as URMDAC, and there's 1 position that is available now. So what are the wishes of the commission with regard to authorizing recruitment of these vacancies? We have a motion from Commissioner Treese. We have a second from Vice Chair Willie. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 5-0. And now we're off to another really great item here for Washington County. We're in the economic development game. but with a very specific set of goals and objectives. And our economic development manager, Matt Craigie, oh, there you are, Matt, has developed a work plan and is here to make a short presentation so we can adopt it and he can get on with it. Take it away, Matt.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. Good evening, board members. Thank you for the opportunity to present to your board this evening. For the record, my name is Matt Craigie. I'm the county's economic development manager. Great to be back here with you all. So to provide context and inform our viewers about this board action item, which is recommendation to adopt the county's proposed 2022 work plan, I'm going to just provide a brief summary here, Chair Harrington and board members. Next slide, please. For viewers that wish to understand more about the work plan, I do suggest that you review the recording, the longer presentation that I gave on this subject during the board's work session earlier this month. It was on Tuesday the 8th. You can find it on YouTube. You can also review the work plan itself, which is included in the agenda packet here. Chair and board members, as you'll recall from the presentation on the 8th, the staff has been working on this work plan over the past year. So just real briefly, the work plan centered on a framework of equitable economic development, an approach that seeks to ensure that every member of the Washington County community can share in and benefit from economic growth. It also provides a platform for the county to help address economic challenges and opportunities in areas without or little capacity for economic development, while also seeking to amplify initiatives and economic progress in communities countywide. Next slide, please. So in the work plan, we've highlighted 3 priorities to focus on this year. So that's to promote an equitable economic recovery, to build a strong organizational foundation for the economic development program, to build relationships with other agencies, community organizations, businesses, and community members, while seeking partnership opportunities to bring external resources to local communities. I do want to be clear that this is a plan of action. While we're proposing a lot of this necessary and very important formative work in this year's plan, we're already working hard on the behalf of communities across Washington County to elevate economic opportunities and tackle challenges. To just provide a few examples here, with the county's ARPA dollars, we have been supporting small businesses and entrepreneurs through this challenging time with technical assistance partnerships, through local community and business support organizations. We've been convening business support organizations to see collaborative partnerships and foster a stronger referral network. We've been strategically seeking workforce development services and partnerships to meet the current needs of workers and businesses as we move through this economic recovery period. This is a difficult time. While we can be hopeful that the pandemic will wane soon, we know that it has had inequitable impacts across communities in Washington County, and it has been especially hard on marginalized communities. So this work is about seeking to convene community partners to ensure that everyone in Washington County can access good jobs, that every business can find talent that they need to grow, and that we're supporting strategic investments that elevate our local economy. So that is, Chair Harrington, board members, that's the briefest recap there with our recommendation that your board adopt the 2022 Economic Development Work Plan. As one procedural note here, I do propose to come back to your board on a semi-annual basis to talk about progress and what we're working on, and talk more about the actions and the outcomes that we're seeking. So with that, that's what I have for you this evening. I welcome any questions, comments, or discussion.
Commissioners, any questions? Go ahead, Vice Chair Willie, and then Commissioner Treese.
Yeah, I don't have a question, Matt. I think you've done a great job of kind of perpetuating the relationships that we started with the CARES dollars back in 2020, and certainly working with the cities, and you've really put a great foundation together from the standpoint of going forward. And I like your work plan priorities, and I especially like the focus of building relationships and seeking partnership opportunities. I think that's how we're all going to succeed. And as they say, all boats rise. So good job on this. And yeah, I appreciate your hard work on it.
Thank you, Commissioner Willie.
I just want to echo what Commissioner Willie said, and also to say thanks to Matt for really following the direction that we intended when we looked to the development of your focus, with the focus on the unincorporated area for the economic development services, and then the collaboration with all the cities. So I've only heard good things back from the mayors in regard to your involvement with the other economic development managers around, and how the collaboration is there. So my hat's off to you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you,
And
Commissioner.
I'll add, it's not only with the mayors, but with all of the different chambers and business groups throughout Washington County, as well as with the smaller rural cities and our small metro area cities as well. You get really high marks, Matt. Thank you so much for the incredible work that you and your growing team have been able to achieve on behalf of our community, providing more opportunities to more business folks.
Thank you, Chair.
Let's hear it for good old entrepreneurs. Well, so do we have a motion to adopt the Economic Development Plan? Thank you, Commissioner Treese. Second from Vice Chair Willie. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raising your hand. Thank you, Commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously, 5-0. Thank you. And next, we have our second public comment period. Can you tell I really needed a second dose of caffeine today? So I'm trying to make up for it with a little bit of adrenaline. Clerk Moss, do we have anyone?
We have no one signed up, Madam Chair. Would any members of the public like to address the board for public comment up to 5 minutes to end our meeting tonight? Please utilize the raise hand function.
Oh dear, they all look like Washington County employees. So I guess we don't have any members.
We do not, Madam Chair.
Unless, you know, our employees are members of our community here too. So if they want to put their resident hat on. No, no takers tonight. Okay, one time good deal, huh? All right, next we'll move to board announcements. Wow, here we are, the end of February already, looking at the month of March. So next Tuesday, March 1st, we'll have a work session at 8:30. Then we'll have our monthly Housing Authority of Washington County Board of Directors meeting starting at 10. And our weekly Board of Commissioners meeting will convene after that, generally at 11 o'clock or so. And then we'll reconvene in our work session later in the afternoon. We have a roundtable next Thursday, probably only be in the morning, starting at 9, Thursday, March 3rd. Then we go into our full day of work session, Tuesday, March 8th, starting at 8:30. The following Tuesday, the 15th, is a work session in the afternoon and a board meeting just like tonight at 6:30. You may notice that's a little unusual. Well, that's because the week of March 21st, our public schools here in Washington County have that off for spring break. And so we want to make sure that we are a family-friendly, great employer. And so we've changed our schedule accordingly. Tuesday, March 29th, at this rate, we don't need to have a work session or business meeting that day. But if we do, we'll take advantage of it. But at this juncture, looks like we're all set. And I am not ready for the month of April yet, so we'll just have to leave it there. Are there any other board announcements this evening? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion from Commissioner Treese, a second from Vice Chair Willie. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you. Anyone opposed? The motion carries unanimously, 5-0. Good night, folks.